Nice to have you back again. This time the video is going to continue with the graph for the academic students, and today I'm going to enlighten you about the right approach to a line graph. As you're already aware of the earlier videos that I have done with you, which is the flow chart and the pictorial graph and the double pie chart. So today I'm going to take you on to the line graph. But before that, I would like you to just look at the screen, and we will go through those particular parameters that we need to follow, which is very essential to get a good band for your writing task 1. So to get a 7+ band, these are the parameters to follow. These are the points to remember. Okay. So now looking at the screen, this we're talking about is a writing module, task 1, which is graph, and the time allocated is 20 minutes. And you have to write between 150 and 170 words, but you have to cross 150 words. It's mandatory to get a good score, but try not to take it beyond 170. And moreover, you'll get one sheet only for task 1. Your one sheet means the one answer sheet, and you will get approximately on both sides 20 and 20 lines, which works up to 40 lines. So I would advise you that on the flip side of the page, you just count 10 lines and draw a line and tell yourself that task 1, I'm going to write only on 30 lines. So approximately you will leave a line after introduction and you leave a line after the body. Sometimes you may have to write 2 paragraphs. So if so, then again you're leaving a line. And on the whole, you leave 2 or 3 lines. So if you minus that from 30, you will get about 26, 27 lines. And if you multiply that with 8, then you will definitely cross 150. So this is a best way of knowing whether you have crossed 150 words. Okay. Then there are different types of graphs. You have the line graph, bar graph, and you have the pie chart, and you have the table graph, and you also have pictorial graph and flow chart, which of course is already done for you. The number 3, 5, and 6 is done, as you can see on the screen. Now, once again, I would like to remind you that for 1, 2, 3, and 4, it is correct. It is the right form to use the word indicate and depicts, even though the question has the word shows, tells, explains. Just change that into indicates or depict. If it is a line graph or a bar graph or a pie chart or a table graph. And if it is a pictorial graph or flow chart, as I said in my previous videos, it is advisable to use the word illustrates or describes. Okay. Now you may get a combination of 1 to 4, that is 2 graphs, or you may get just one, that is either one line graph or bar graph. So whatever it is, if it is a combination, the concept of both the graphs will be the same. And if it's just one graph, like a line graph or bar graph, then the information will be, the data will be quite a lot. So you will have a reason to build up your answer. However, if you're getting 5 and 6, that is pictorial graph and flow chart, you will not get it in combination with a line or a bar or a pie or a table. That will be just any one of them. Now, what kind of words to use, which is commonly called as graph words? Okay. We should not use the words like the graph tells, the graph speaks, or the graph talks. I consider this as lame ducks. That means not really acceptable for a good score. The success of a well-written graph is mentioning comparisons. That is very important. Comparisons of superlatives, inferiors and superiors, peaks and troughs, the trends and the features. Making differences, highlighting differences is what matters in the graph. It is always safe to write graph in past tense. Your opinion or view is not required in a graph. What the graph is depicting, what the graph is illustrating, that information only you're supposed to write. Your observation of the in-depth information of the graph, that is the information or the data, should be elaborated in one paragraph. Maybe two if you're describing two different graphs. The number of paragraphs could be 4 or 5. That is introduction, followed by one paragraph, maybe a second paragraph, and then you have the conclusion. So usually it is 4 to 5. Introduction, paragraph, comparisons, overall, and conclusion. Now, overall you might say is similar to conclusion, but I wouldn't say that, because when you say overall, it means it's giving your perception of what the graph main information is about. And conclusion is concluding what the entire graph is about. So don't go to the understanding that overall means conclusion. Okay, so let's get this clear. Introduction, one paragraph, maybe two paragraphs. Then you have the overall and then you have the conclusion. Okay, now it's helpful for you if you use the comparison words like however, on the contrary, in comparison, nevertheless, by contrast, when compared to, but do not use words like up, down, top, bottom, fall, climb. These are not acceptable words for a graph. Now, I would like to suggest some words to write for graphs when it is a high increase or just an increase. Just an increase, you will only use the word rose or increased. But if there's a tremendous difference, like for example, you're starting with 10, just I'm saying a 10, and you've shot up to 100 or 70, that is called a big margin. So for such words, it's good to use was intensified and intensification. Upsurge is a very popular word nowadays, especially in the news. Mushroom, proliferated, upturned, or elevated. And you can also say another word like escalated, which is the happening word now, escalated. Then you have number 2, words for lines or a total that is low or a decrease. For a very small drop, like something that started with again 100 and has dropped to 80, that is when you use these kind of words: decline, diminished, decreased, reduced, meager, least. And if there's much difference, like let me say from 100 and it has dropped down to, let's say 20, then that is a big variation. So for that, we need to use stronger words like dwindle, shrank or shrunk, plummeted, nosedive, dipped, dropped, or plunge. Okay, now words to use for normal, base, equal, there's not much of a difference, right? So you can say it's like a platform. So steady, same, constant, even, stable, plateau, balance. Words to use for wavy lines, lines that go, like the waves in the sea, up and down, but not much of a difference. So you can write fluctuate, unsteady, freckle or frickle, not freckle, frickle, unpredictable, undependable, waver, and zigzag. Then words to use for topmost, absolute, the peak. And that is when you can use apex point, reach the peak, skyrocketed, escalated, burgeon, and pinnacle. Now use these adjectives to the words mentioned above, especially in the list of 1 and the list in 2. Like steadily increased, marginally dipped, slowly diminished, gradually, we can say intensified. So these adjective words will help significantly upsurge. So these adjective words will add on to the graph word that you have used. Conclusion, use these expressions to conclude or in conclusion or final. In the introduction, bring out the question and then mention the data on the y-axis. Now the y-axis is the straight line, that is the standing up line, and the x-axis is the horizontal line. So it's very good if you introduce your graph by ending the information by what is the y-axis depicting, whether it's in percentages, whether it's in percentage, or whether it's in milligrams, or is it in kilograms, or is it in miles or speed. Always remember the y-axis will only refer to numbers and the x-axis will refer to the subject. Okay, it can be names, it can be months, it can be years, it can be nouns like travel or countries, whatever. Okay, now here's one example. It's rather ironic that this example is coming across to you because this is the situation we are in for the past 2 years, and let's hope and pray that with 2021 disappearing, so will the pandemic disappear. Anyway, we leave it in God's hands. So here is an example. Below is a line graph, and this is the question. The graph shows the data of the deaths and the patients in India. The table is given in percentage. This is recorded for the year 2020. The cause of this unfortunate situation in the country is due to the pandemic, coronavirus. Now mention the situation and bring out the improvement in your answer. Now this is what you have to do. You have to spend at least 15 to 20 seconds on studying the graph. Now what is written on top? Line graph. But that will not be mentioned on the question paper. But here it is mentioned, so you'll have an idea what a line graph looks like. On the right side, you can see deaths in thick line, and the thin line one is patients, right? Y-axis is starting with 10 and reaching up to 100, and the symbol here is percent. So, which means the y-axis is indicated in terms of percentage. And the x-axis is the months. But you will see at the end, after October, there is an arrow. That arrow means that the graph doesn't end there. The information is expected to move on to the end of the year. So that is when you have to use the future tense words like expected to, anticipated, predicted to continue till December. December is not mentioned. But if you do so, it means that you understand what is the meaning of the arrow on the x-axis. Right. Now, introduction. If you write the same as mentioned in the question, then you can expect only a 6 band. Exactly what is mentioned in the question, then you're getting just a 6 band. But if you are innovative, like this, the simple term is the graph indicates the deaths and patients, comma, don't forget your punctuations please, due to the pandemic, comma, in the year 2020 for 10 months from Jan to October by percentage. Now for an 8+ band, rephrase the question innovatively like this. Due to the unfortunate upsurge of the pandemic, comma, India had faced a great loss of citizens that was the cause of their death, comma, when compared to the patients, comma, who were asymptomatic but did not succumb to death, full stop. This happened in the year 2020 from January, comma, and the data indicates till October, and it is recorded by percentage. Now, when you read this introduction, it is very innovative, maybe a little too spicy or a little too exaggerative, but for the moment, let us accept this kind of introduction. Now, after you have done that, you must analyze the graph point by point. And this is what we're doing. Jan to Feb, both the count, the percentage is same. Same in what manner? That means January, what is it? 40 and 50. And same means both were increasing till February. March, patients stable, but death continued. Look at the graph. March, this is March, stable, but deaths continued. Then you go to the next one. April, deaths stable, patients rose. Is that correct? April, what is the situation? Deaths were stable, but patients rose. So there's a twist here. Then you go to May. May, deaths plunged, patients stable. Is that correct? Yes. Deaths plunged and patients stable. Then you go, this is month by month we are working on. June, deaths skyrocketed, patients continued its increase. June, deaths skyrocketed and patients continued to increase. And then you come to July. Both reached a common peak. Common peak. Both were at 90. And then the next one is 7th one, August and September, a tremendous decline. Okay, you can see both the lines just plunging beautifully. And then you have October, both stable, as you can see there. And then you have predicted to vanish by December 2020. Now, actually, we should say we anticipated on it vanishing in 2020, but let's hope 2021 will take it along with it. Now, all the 9 points cannot be written. You can't go writing all these 9 points sentence by sentence. You have to think of a way of combining them. First, begin the paragraph by referring to the start of the line. Any graph that you get, please remember where the line starts, what is the first information on the graph, mention that after the introduction. Your first sentence should be based on what the graph is talking about or referring to or indicating in the very beginning, like this. The line graph indicates that in the year 2020 January, the deaths were 50% and the patients were 40%. This drastic occurrence of the death shocked the nation. Right? Now, second, now this is coming after the introduction, what I just read. Now you come to the second part. In the second part, continuing from this first line, you will divide the x-axis data into convenient, appropriate 3 parts and then put them in 3 paragraphs. So what we will do, we will combine Jan to March, April to June, July to October. Okay, that's how you get one full paragraph. So how did we combine Jan to March? From then on. Now, the very fact of using the word from then on, it clearly goes to say, I have begun my answer by talking about the first information, and now I am moving on to what the graph is indicating. So, from then on, comma, till March, the deaths rapidly increased by 30% and then was constant. Similarly, the patients increased to 20% and remained stable. Okay. April to June, amazingly, from April, the deaths rate plummeted to 60% and then was stable, whereas the asymptomatic people continued to reach a peak of 90%. This was an alarming observation. That's definitely alarming. So writing these expressions you can when you are practicing to write your graph, because ultimately what I'm going to explain to you further, you will realize what I'm saying. So just let your mind blow out. Just write what you feel should be mentioned. And afterwards, after many practices, you will realize what is important to write. Okay, now July to October, nevertheless, the government played a pivotal role, and from July to October, the graph clearly depicts the significant plunge in the deaths, which reached 30%, less than when the death was recorded in January. Now, you get your score here because you have highlighted this fact, less than when the death rate was recorded in Jan. For that, you get your points. Okay. Now we are coming to the overall. Overall is the perception of what you have understood from the graph, the main information. The data of deaths in patients reflects the fact in January, the percentage was high and continued, which fluctuated. On the contrary, comma, towards the end, there is a positive expectation of a decrease of the deaths and patients. That is absolutely clearly mentioning the fact that this is actually what the graph is referring to or indicating. And that's why you have mentioned that. And to conclude, India is brave enough to fight against this epidemic and eradicate this unfortunate outburst of the plague. Okay, now listen carefully. After you put whatever I have read just now, put it in one complete paragraph. You are getting 256 words. Now, this is what happens when you let your mind loose, but do it only when you're practicing. Because when you keep practicing and elaborating your thoughts, and after that, you should start deleting the overexpressed information, the repetitive expression, or information that is not required, which means information that is giving your opinion. Then you will realize, okay, That's not what I'm supposed to write. I'm supposed to write just what is mentioned in the graph. So now the reduced version is which I'm going to show you. The red words are the comparison words which are important, and the green words are the graph words. So let's see now how much we can bring it down. Now you have the facility of going back on my video and comparing the elaborated version of the answer to the concise version of the answer. And this is what will definitely get you a 7 band. No doubt about it. Now, due to the unfortunate upsurge of the pandemic in India, many citizens died, comma, when compared to the asymptomatic. The data is from January to October 2020 and recorded by percentage. Now, this is a count of only 30 words. But what is the elaborate version? 60 words. And what we have taken out? We have deleted overexpression. We have deleted our opinions. Like, India had faced a great deal of loss. That is my opinion. And this has happened. This is the overexpression. So you should now realize that for practice, let me let loose. But after practicing, you yourself should start eliminating and deleting what you considered was unnecessary. Only then you will be able to know how to restrict your thoughts to a limit of word count. Okay, let's go to the second paragraph and see the difference. The line graph indicates that in 2020 January, the deaths were 10% more than the patients. However, till March, both the deaths and the patients increased to 30% and 20% respectively, then remained constant. Now, this is referring to which paragraph? This is referring to the first paragraph after the introduction. And this is a count of 58 words, and here it is concise to 36 words. Right? Now we go to next one. Amazingly, from April, the deaths plummeted to 60% and then stable, whereas the asymptomatic people continued to escalate to 90% respectively. Now, this is 23 words, and this is from this paragraph, which is 33 words. Okay, now we go to the next paragraph. Nevertheless, from July to October, the graph depicts the significant plunge in the deaths at 30% and patients at 10%. This is just 29 words. And what is the elaborated version? This is it, and this is 50 words. And now we go to overall. Overall, in January, the percentage was high, then fluctuated. On the contrary, there is a positive expectation of a decrease of the deaths and patients. Now, this is a 23 words paragraph, and this, what we have here is 36 words. Now, coming to the conclusion, what we have here, to conclude, in January, the deaths and the patients were 50 and 40% respectively. On the contrary, it is predicted to plunge tremendously to 20 and 30% respectively. And what we have here, this conclusion happens to be 19, but the conclusion here is 30 because we're giving a little more information about the entire graph. So guys, my advice to you is, first practice as many graphs as you can on all the 6 different types of graphs. You can just Google for the types of graph, practice writing it as elaborately as you can, and then get down to eliminating or deleting. Then only you will have the feel and the grip of understanding the fact that I should only write this and I should only go as far as 150 to 170 words. Okay, so I hope you will keep connected to Apex Determiners, and thank you all, my subscribers, and those who have yet not, please do. It will help you and help me, because once you subscribe, you will get the update of all my future videos. Now, the next video that you will see, which I'm going to do in a short while, it will be about table graph and bar graph. And then the segment of different bar graphs will be done. And further on, I will also do a video on letter writing for those who are going for the general test. So that will all be shot, and you will have the pleasure and the privilege of knowing what exactly you have to do for the graph, right? So let me tell you, you have 2 graphs, task 1 and task 2. Concentrate on task 1. Give it your best shot, because once you get to know and get the real right approach to writing graph, then the maximum score you will get already in your graph. So which means, let me say approximately out of 5 for task 1 and 5 for task 2. I'm just giving you an idea. So if you do your task 1 well, you can get a full score of 4. And if you do your task 2, maybe not too well, because essay is always not an easy thing to write, but the graph is quite good. I mean, you can get your full score. So if you get 4 there, so from the essay, you can certainly get 3. So 4 plus 3 will certainly take you to 7. So what I say is, don't give partial focus to both. Give full focus to one, so you can be sure you'll get the high score for that, and then getting a little more from the other will definitely be beneficial for you. So once again, thank you for watching my Apex Determiners, and subscribe, like and share. See you. Bye-bye.